Have you ever looked at a photo and wondered how it would feel to add a bit of magic to it with your own artistic touch? By adding illustrations to our photos, we can create a fun and unique look to breathe new life into our memories. In this video, I'll guide you through the tools and techniques to illustrate your world. Whether you're an aspiring photographer, a budding illustrator, or you just like to stretch your imagination, you'll enjoy melding these two distinct styles into one unique masterpiece. To illustrate your world, you can really start with any kind of photo that you want. Here are a bunch of examples that I've saved on Pinterest, but this is just a small sampling of the type of things you can do. You can keep it really simple, or you can get a lot more detailed, depending on what photo you start with and what you'd like to do. You can add cartoon characters. You can cartoonify some clothing. That's a really popular thing to do. You can totally change a scene by what you add to it, or you can just add some simple white graphics. The main thing that you want to do is choose a high quality photo, and then we're going to import it directly into Procreate. We're not going to start with a canvas. We're going to choose Photo. If you have it saved as a file, you would choose Import. And then I'm just going to grab the photo. Now I saved a bunch from Pexels, which are commercial-free photos. But of course, you could do this with any photo that you have as well. We're going to take this gal and we're going to give her a little bit more of an exciting ice cream cone, and we're going to change her background a little bit, do some fun stuff to illustrate her world. The photo that you pick should have some kind of a main subject or a focal point. That's what we're going to illustrate around. For this example, we're going to make the background into grayscale. That's going to make her pop a little bit more, and then we're going to do some more illustrations around that. The first thing we're going to do is come to our layers panel over here. I'm going to duplicate this layer by swiping to the left. And then we're going to come to our adjustments menu, this magic wand, and choose Hue, Saturation, and Brightness. To turn a photo into grayscale, you really just need to take the saturation all the way down to none. Now we have a nice grayscale version of our photo. Now, in order to have just the background be grayscale, we're going to need to cut her out of the original. Let's come back to our layers panel. Choose this little check mark here to temporarily turn off this grayscale one. Select the full color version. I actually like to keep a backup of this just in case I want to do something else later. So I'm going to duplicate this one more time and just turn off that backup. Now coming to this full color layer, we're going to go to Select. Make sure you're on freehand. And then we can use two fingers to pinch and zoom way in here. And we can start choosing what we're going to cut out. I'm going to speed this up as I draw all the way around her to cut her out. And you can be a little bit careful around where there's hair. You can go in and out of it a little bit like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can always adjust it later on. Now when I get to the bottom, we're just going to come over and connect to this dot. Now we have an outline all around her, and we're just going to choose Copy and Paste. We're going to drag this layer with the cutout onto the top, and then when we turn our grayscale layer back on, now you can see we have a full color focal point and a grayscale background. Let's go ahead and turn up the saturation on her just a little bit. We're going to go back to Adjustments, Hue, Saturation, and Brightness. And bump that up just a little bit to make her pop a little bit more. Tweak the brightness, and you can just adjust these to whatever level you like. Cutting out your subject is also going to be really important if you want to do an illustration where elements are going to surround them or go behind them. Let me show you an example. In this photo, I drew this swirly element around this couple. So I've actually duplicated it twice, once in the front and once in the back of them. So I had to have a cutout of them in order to make this work. Now we're ready to add our illustration. Let's go ahead and add a new layer. And you want to choose a color that is going to stand out in contrast with the background. I think I might actually take the brightness down on this a little bit, just to make this a little more contrast. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and use white. And you can use any brush for this. The Studio Pen is a really good one, or any of the monoline brushes. But really anything that you'd like for your illustration will work. Let's make sure we're on our new layer. If you're going to do any kind of a complex illustration, it's usually a good idea to sketch first. And then you could lower the opacity of that layer and draw over it. But for this one, I'm not going to do anything too complex right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear that. But that's always an option as well. The first thing I'm going to do is add some lines around the outside of her here to give the illusion of some movement. And I'm just going to freehand these a little bit, going around some of these curves here. Add some fun little doodles. This can just be whatever you'd like. That already looks more fun, but we are going to make her ice cream cone a lot more interesting. Now, in order to do that, we are going to need to do one more cutout because we have her hand right here in front of it. Let's go ahead and come to the layer with her cutout here. Go back to the selection tool on freehand. And I really only need to cut out this part with her hand down to her arm. It looks like she's holding some kind of a napkin here. We're going to actually extend the cone and cover that up, so I'm not going to cut that out. Tap that circle to close your selection. I'm going to choose copy and paste again. And now you can see we have a cutout of her and another cutout of just her hand. So I want to draw my ice cream cone between those two. We're going to add a new layer here. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually sketch this just so I have a vague idea of where I want this ice cream cone to be. I want to make sure that the cone covers all of that area. And then I think we're going to give her 2 scoops and maybe even a little cherry on top. All right, so that's really rough, but we're going to just use that as our sketch and work on top of that. For now, let's go ahead and invert this layer by tapping on it and choosing invert. That'll turn it black. Tap and hold on this check mark to isolate that layer, and then we're going to turn on the layer that we're actually going to work on. So for this sketch layer, let's turn the opacity way down. You just want to be able to see the size. And I actually do want this to have a white outline. So I'm going to turn my background color to be a little bit gray just so I can see those white lines. I'm going to take my brush size down just a little bit. And let's draw her ice cream cone. One thing I love about illustrating on top of photos is having that nice hand-drawn look is really fun. You don't have to be too perfect. It doesn't have to be absolutely clean lines. It can be whatever your style is. If you've watched my coloring page video, we're going to use some of those same principles here. So I'm making sure that I'm closing off these shapes as I go. Now let's give her a couple scoops of ice cream. And a nice cherry on top. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and get rid of our sketch. You can either hide it or just delete it. And that's going to bring everything back. Now we're just going to fill this with color. We're going to add one layer underneath it. And we're going to make this a reference layer so our color stays within these lines. Tap on the layer and choose reference. And now we can color in her ice cream cone. I have a nice palette for cookies here that I think will work really well. For the cone, I like to use different shades of brown to make it look a little more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and hide her hand temporarily so I can see everywhere that I'm coloring. And I'm just going to use Color Drop. And put some of this regular brown in a few of these spaces. And then I'm going to come to a little bit of a darker shade. Even darker on some of this edge like it's in the shadow. And then I'm going to use a lighter brown on some of these other areas. And then even a little bit lighter for a couple of these. And that just gives a really nice, fun look to that cone. Let's think about what flavors of ice cream she would have. One of my favorites is mint chocolate chip. Let's grab a really nice mint color here. And we're going to add some of those chocolate chips. We'll just draw those in. It's looking good. Let me know in the comments what your favorite flavor of ice cream is. And we need one more on top of that. Maybe a chocolate swirl. Let's grab a nice medium brown here. And put some chocolate swirl in there. Maybe a little bit of marshmallow. Ooh, that would be good. Let's try selecting this. And then just blurring that. That works better. Perfect. Okay. Now we just need to find a really nice red for our cherry. That looks good. And she is good to go. And when we turn this layer back on that has her hand, now you can see she's holding a much more fun ice cream cone. And if you want to have some more control over your illustrations, depending on how complex they are, you can use separate layers for each color. I talk about that in my coloring page video as well. You could also use brushes, you could use texture and different effects. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with this. If you have trouble with color, choosing the right one, you're not sure what goes together or how to choose a cohesive palette, I do have a great resource for that. It's called From Pixels to Palettes, and I'm going to go ahead and link that in the description down below if you'd like some more information. Once you have a design that you like, you're going to want to share it. So how we do that is up here in the wrench, that's your actions menu. Come over to share, and then you can choose usually a JPEG or a PNG. One other fun thing that we can do with illustrations on our photos is animate them. If that's something that you're interested in learning, Let me know in the comments and I can make a video on that as well. I hope that was helpful. I love showing people how to combine creativity and technology on this channel. If you enjoyed it, I would appreciate it if you took just a quick second to give me a thumbs up down below. It really does help out my small channel and just tells YouTube that more people should watch this. If you want to learn some more Procreate tips and tricks, make sure that you watch this video next.